Let's talk about the one forward, or sorry, one of the two forwards in your top 10. The highest one on the board, though, is Marco Rossi. I mean, again, a lot of the top six forwards, like you said, have evaporated. So, what does that mean for the market for Rossi? Is it maybe going to pick up here? Could the Wild get a better offer than they thought they would?
If they got a better offer than they thought they would, they already would have moved him, because the
Yeah.
offers to this point have been pretty underwhelming, I guess is what you would say, as how they've set their internal value for Marco Rossi. And what the Wild are faced with potentially is that they might have to go back to this player who's been on the market for a bit and the conversation hasn't been that pleasant, that, hey, we're going to have to bridge this guy and keep him and flex our RFA muscles because we haven't had a deal materialize that we really want. And you're right. Your assumption would be that, hey, because the top six forward market is so thin, you would think that that would lend them to getting a better deal. But the problem is, when it comes to Marco Rossi, he's undersized at 5'9", and even though he doesn't play timid, that teams aren't looking at that saying that's the solution to what we're looking for.
Yeah. So, as one of the players who's kind of really fallen down your board is Jordan Kyrou. Again, if there's not a lot of forwards on the market, what's leading to maybe the calming on the Kyrou front?
Because the Blues weren't looking to unload Kyrou. The Blues, and why he rocketed on our board, is he was in talks to go to Buffalo in a JJ Paterka deal. That was one moment in time. They're not raising a flag saying, hurry up, someone come get Jordan Kyrou. They're saying, we were thinking about moving this guy to Buffalo in this deal. Now that we haven't, I mean, someone could come in and knock their socks off to get him before that no trade clause kicks in on Tuesday. But short of that, like, the Blues are perfectly happy keeping Jordan Kyrou.
Let's play a little smoke, fire, false alarm, Frank. I'm going to throw you something that's been rumbling around on the rumor mill. You're going to let me know if there's smoke to it, if it's fire and it's legit, or if this one is nothing more than a false alarm. Again, going back to the draft order tonight, we've talked a lot about a top 10 pick getting moved, but what about multiple top 10 picks getting moved? I saw that circulating out there. Multiple top 10 picks on the move, smoke, fire, false alarm.
Tell me how the board's going to go. I have a pretty good sense of how the first three picks are going to go.
Mhm.
Then tell me what Utah Mammoth are doing at 4.
Yeah.
Then we can have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, fair. So then going just outside of the top 10, you can see Pittsburgh at 11 or 12. There was some talk that, they'd be willing to move one of those picks for a good cost controlled young forward. Smoke or fire on that front. Pittsburgh moving one of their two.
I think there's definite fire there. I think the Penguins are. I think, look, in the end, the Penguins really need young, significant contributors. And perhaps the only way to get those is to draft. But what a lot of these teams are running into is, it's great to have picks and it's great to have multiple picks, but there's a lot of teams that don't really love the board. And they're saying, in the current position that we're in, we're going to have to really grow to love the player that we select, as opposed to being over the moon picking him, which is not the usual feel for an NHL draft. And it definitely wouldn't be the feel for a 2026 draft.
You were plural there and saying like young contributors to the Penguins lineup. And does that maybe make it, I want to say, easier or maybe more likely Dubas makes a trade? Because like they don't need to be picky in terms of the kind of forward they're getting, right? Like they can't turn up their nose at a Marco Rossi and go, well, he's small, he doesn't really fit what we're doing, because there's not a lot there.
Yeah, but that's not like, no, you want foundation. If you're moving assets, you want foundational pieces that are going to be part of your team for a long time. And I think he's a great supporting player. I don't think anyone's sitting here going, Marco Rossi is our second line center for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. A Thatcher Demko. Actually, no, one more for you on the Pittsburgh front. Carolina as a potential destination for Erik Karlsson. That's been floating around out there. Is that smoke or fire?
I would say that's probably false alarm.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, when you consider, first off, I think Pittsburgh's got a real decision to make about how they want to approach this offseason? Are you actually stripping it down? I think it's not only in their best interest because that's the right direction to go, but also because the sooner you strip it down and you actually fall far enough in the season, you're putting yourself in play for McKenna. And that's really what matters in 2026. So not only like does it need to happen, but to do it in a timely fashion would be super beneficial. However, the suggestion that they're asking for a premium for Erik Karlsson and then an additional premium to knock his pay down to 7 or 7.5 million, I just don't know that they're properly evaluating the market in order to realistically attain that. So when it comes to the conversation about the Carolina Hurricanes, if you were to say, hey, we're just done with this guy and we want to get him off of our books, or we're not looking for a lot in return, then I think you could see the Carolina Hurricanes interested. They prey on using their cap space and not having big acquisition costs. But if it's a big acquisition cost, the first thing the Canes are going to do for themselves is say, we have Shane Gostisbehere making $3 million. He perfectly is capable of quarterbacking our power play. How much more, whether it's Dobson or Karlsson or whoever it might be, how much more 2x, are we getting 2x or 3x the value relative to cap to bring in one of those two guys? That's not a proposition that they'd be interested in, I don't think.
Thatcher Demko falls all the way down to 35 on your board, and you had the scoop in there that they could be working towards an extension.
Yeah, I think there's some light at the end of the tunnel there. I think they've made some progress. I think they've gotten to a place where they can get a deal done, but also really timely. Today's probably going to be a pretty important day on the Demko front, because if not, I don't see, if you're not, you're either signing him, and if you're not, I don't see him being a Vancouver Canuck beyond Tuesday. And not a hard deadline by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't see the Canucks entering this season with Demko as a pending UFA, knowing that teams don't typically trade for goalies and certainly aren't going to pay a premium to do it in season, short of a massive injury that is ready to derail a season. And that's also then the risk that you would run if you were to try and keep Demko into the season, is that his body might not cooperate. So I think the Canucks have set an asking price of a first-round pick. If someone were to step up and pay it, they'd have a real decision to make. But in the meantime, their interest and their focus has been on extending Thatcher Demko, and we'll see how that plays out today.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.